because I hope you'll think about these when hopefully you reflect on what I've said and what to do next. And the first one is the one which is showing on your screen now. There are no shortcuts to the top of a palm tree. And the second one, which I hope the person, there we go. The second one is, there are no witnesses to dream. There are no witnesses to a dream. You've heard that Nigeria has a special place in my heart. For 4 years, 1993 to 97, I was what they called in the European Commission the desk officer for Nigeria. Then I became the European Commission's head of unit responsible for Nigeria, Niger, Benin, and Togo. I traveled extensively around the country. I met amazing people. I have some very vivid memories of being enchanted by the singing of Fela Kuti in the shrine, of the sonorous voice and wisdom of Professor Wole Soyinka, of the, but maybe more negatively, the sinister car cavalcade and dark glasses of General Abacha, the Nigerian president at that time. I remember the Emir of Borno being carried in a sedan chair into a planning workshop I was attending. I remember driving across Borno State, across arid desert sands, which, according to my map, was a gazetted forest reserve. Of course, those were the days before the terror of Boko Haram. But perhaps my most vivid memory was hearing on a visit to an EU-financed tea project on Mambilla Plateau of the hanging that day, 10th November 1995, of Ken Saro-Wiwa, one of my environmental heroes, who had actually come to meet me in my office in Brussels several months before, as he explained to me the plight of the Ogoni people and the problems of oil pollution. I was stunned. I was summoned back to Brussels and directed to close down the European Union's 500 million development cooperation program for Nigeria, and to reallocate funds away from the government-led projects to those supported by civil society and human rights groups. Some of the people I met in those days, 25 years ago, were campaigning for democracy and human rights. Persons such as Kayode Fayemi, now the governor of Ekiti State, one of a range of new Nigerian leaders. Well, what have all these memories got to do with this speech? Well, for me, they're part of my own identity, my own being, my own culture, my own learning process. It explains in some small way my affection for Nigeria, my sense of pride and joy in meeting Vice Chancellor Lawrence when I was doing some voluntary work after my retirement at the Lancaster University Centre for Global Eco-Innovation. These are a new generation of Nigerian leaders, inspirational, motivated, keen to mark out a new vision for Nigeria. Indeed, it was with them that I cooked up the idea of promoting the creation of regional eco-innovation centres in Africa, bringing together universities, authorities, small and medium-sized enterprises, businesses, local communities, creating synergies, catalysing ideas, focusing on innovation, producing green products that will provide for the needs of communities at a grassroots level. Today, I want to talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and what they mean for Africa, and more particularly for this university. There are 17 goals and 169 targets. Most of you in this audience may be vaguely aware that they exist. They're approved at New York in September 2015 at the UN General Assembly. They're the successors to the 8 Millennium Development Goals, which were approved by the UN in September 2000, and the development practitioners have used for the last 15 years to set goals, targets, indicators to achievement in many areas such as access to water, health, education, food security. And at that time, the UN's Human Development Index had been developed as one of the statistical innovations for measuring progress in achieving these goals. In short, the 17 SDGs to transform our world are: goal number 1 on the left-hand side of your screen, no poverty. End poverty in all its forms, everywhere. Goal number 2, zero hunger. End hunger. Achieve food security and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. Goal number 3, good health and well-being. Ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Goal 4, quality education. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning. 5, gender equality. Achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Goal number 6, clean water and sanitation. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Goal number 7, affordable and clean energy. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, modern energy for all. Goal number 8, decent work and economic growth. Promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Goal number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Goal number 10, reduce inequality. Reduce inequality within and among countries. Goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Goal number 12, responsible consumption and production. Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Goal number 13, climate action. Take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Goal number 14, life below water. Conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Goal number 15, life on land. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, halt and reverse land degradation, halt biodiversity loss. Goal number 16, peace and justice, strong institutions. Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. And finally, goal number 17, partnership to achieve these goals. strengthen the means of implementation, and revitalise the global partnerships for sustainable development. Well, that's a long list. Is it achievable? SDGs are similar in some ways to the Millennium Development Goals, but there's a unique difference. Every single nation state in the United Nations are now committed to achieving them, with 2030 as the agreed timeline to meet those targets and a 15-year implementation period. The clock is ticking. Of course, every UN state starts from a different place. The challenges for African countries, however, are much higher than for most other continents because, in general terms, their level of development is much lower. By signing up to the SDGs, every country commits to putting in place a development strategy tailor-made to its own needs. I'll look at the way Nigeria has done this in a few moments. One of the most important ones for this audience and my presentation is SG4 on education. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. I think you'll find in the mission and goals of this university almost the same language. Within this category, there are 10 specific targets. I don't expect you to read what's on the slide, I'll tell you what it says. The first one is, by 2030, ensure that all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and goal-for effective learning outcomes. The list goes on, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, etc., until we come to the one which is particularly relevant to us here today, SDG 4.7, Education for Sustainable Development. The slide on the wall in front of you. To ensure all learners acquire knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through education for sustainable development and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity of culture's contribution to sustainable development. That's quite a mouthful, but that's what we're after. The $64,000 question is, how do you measure whether you've achieved this goal? What indicators have been developed internationally and locally to measure this performance? It's not an easy matter, and all I can say is that 3 years after the adoption of the SDGs, work on this is still going on. It's work in progress. Curiously, and this is a much wider issue that cannot really be discussed here, Africa's own continental education strategy, 2016 to 2025, the so-called CETA, which was adopted by African Union heads of state on 31st January 2016, 3 months later than the adoption of the SDGs, is completely silent on the SDGs. Not a single mention. At the time the SDGs were approved, I'd already retired, and I've been doing voluntary work for a number of non-government organizations in Europe. We've been campaigning for a complete paradigm shift in education and our lifestyles. I'd also been doing some work for the Lancaster University Centre for Global Eco-Innovation. The NGOs and academics in universities had seen that there simply were not enough resources on the planet to maintain the sort of lifestyles the European and American would consider normal. We'd already reached the so-called tipping point. I'm hoping a slide will show. So, again, it's difficult to see, but you'll see one Earth, 1.5 Earths, and 3 Earths. The point where the curve turns down has already passed. We are already using more resources than one planet can sustain. So, and we're also exceeding a number of so-called planetary boundaries. Again, just to explain this slide, what you see before you is a circle and then some bits of the circle which have been breached. And the one on the lower side, the brown bit, is called biodiversity. And it means that we've already gone beyond, as of today, the capacity of the Earth to conserve its own resources. What this means is that collectively, the world is living beyond its means. We passed the tipping point several years ago. We're on a cliff edge, ready to fall into the abyss. I was in campaigning mode. I wrote to the United Nations system on behalf of some of the NGOs that I'd helped, saying, enough is enough. The world community has to wake up. We cannot go on as we are. Who wants to live in such a world? Who wants to leave such a world for the next generation? I, of course, was not the only one to make these pleas. But strangely, surprisingly, the world seemed to listen to the clamour for change. The UN launched a highly consultative, inclusive process and started setting out a new agenda for the world. The Agenda 2030, that would bind all countries across the planet to meet internationally agreed targets. There was a lot of horse trading, a lot of compromises, consensus seeking, and gradually the demands of government and civil society seemed to coalesce. An agreement was reached on 17 goals, 169 targets. At first sight, this seemed nonsense. How can you possibly implement and monitor 169 separate targets and actions? But then the more I thought about it, the more I felt, well, this can't be too bad. Everyone has agreed, and every state, from Bhutan to Chad, from Brazil to the United States, from Nigeria to the Seychelles, has made a commitment to make these SDGs happen. For an environmentalist like me, and as you've heard, I'm an ecologist and started my professional life as an environmental campaigner for the UK's Friends of the Earth, non-government organisation 40 years ago. This was utopia. This was a dream come true. Sadly, of course, these goals are voluntary and not binding. And it's only peer pressure that may convince governments and others to make them happen. In some of the most complicated areas, such as SDG 47 on sustainable development education, there are hardly any agreed indicators to measure progress. At the present time, I'm working with an NGO called Gaia Education in Scotland, which is part of a coalition of partners linked to UNESCO, trying at this very moment to define education indicators. Gaia is working in 49 countries on developing MOOCs and education toolkits for SDGs. It seemed to me that the world had woken up, but hadn't. A month ago, I attended a meeting in Brussels of the 5 top European think tanks working on development issues. The topic was innovation and development. The EU and its member states had already signed up to the SDGs and Agenda 2030. In fact, the EU had spearheaded much of the international debate around the Paris Treaty on climate change. that produced texts on all sorts of policy initiatives on the SDGs, renewables, recycling and the rest, that initiated an internal debate on the circular economy. This is a slide of the circular economy, so actually nothing is lost in the system. And it was shown that this could be the answer to the problems of waste. In fact, there would be no waste, zero waste. Waste was not an item to be thrown away and dumped. It had a value. Every single article produced by humankind should be conceived, designed in such a way as to have a built-in mechanism for reusing the basic raw materials. So fridges, cars, computers, sofas, every single article should be constructed in such a way as to allow as close to 100% recycling as possible. These microphones, this lectern, that flag, your seats, everything should be designed to be recyclable. But the eminent think tank professors came to worrying conclusions. The worrying conclusions were that in reality, no one was doing anything serious to meet these goals. No political party in Europe had taken this on. No government department within our member states had taken any new initiatives, with a few laudable exceptions. Nothing was really being done to match the rhetoric with the action. It was empty rhetoric. So the conclusion I came to, and this is 1 month ago, all this has to change. SDGs have to be a central way to the way Europe does business. The entire European Union budget of €100 billion a year has to be refocused, retargeted on delivering the SDGs. The 5 think tanks concluded this has to be the main lobbying message to take to the European Parliament and European member states in the run-up to the European parliamentary elections in mid and European commissioners or ministers in 2019. I wonder, in the Nigerian context with elections next year, how many politicians are talking about the SDGs. Interestingly, just over 100 of the key NGOs operating in Europe launched a manifesto for sustainable Europe for its citizens. I wonder if there's a similar movement in Nigeria. One of the organizations I help as a board member is ECOLIS, the so-called European Network for Community-Led Initiatives on Climate Change and Sustainability. We have 45 member organizations. We work at grassroots level to support community-led action on climate change and sustainability. We work on a long-term strategy and produce a range of publications. You're about to see one of them? Maybe? Yeah. Now, this is our planning strategy. As you can see, it's quite complicated business. We start on the left-hand side, and we work with the final product on the right-hand side. It's entirely consultative. The next slide shows, I think, some publications, local, community-led, a new future unfolding. This is another one on towards sustainability. These are all publications that came out this year. And in 2017, with full support of the European Economic and Social Committee, we co-hosted the first ever European Day for Sustainable Communities, where we celebrated across Europe the work of local communities to address climate change. On the 22nd of September this year, we had our second meeting. And next month, at COP24 in Poland, we will launch a reflection which we hope will lead to the nomination and declaration of an International Day of Sustainable Communities. And the next slide will show you just a range of different NGOs that we're working with to try to make this happen. Mr. Chairman, civil society is waking up and wants to be heard. At the university level in Africa, there seems to be some developing interest. In September this year, I attended a big Europe-Africa conference in Yaoundé, Cameroon, co-hosted by the European Commission, the African Association of Universities, and others. It was a gathering of the ICQAHEA, the International Conference and Workshops on Quality Assurance in Higher Education in Africa. Slides should magically appear. Maybe. Yeah, that's just the brochure that shows what it's about. Over 250 African vice chancellors, rectors, professors from all of Africa's higher education institutions were present. There were two main issues: quality assurance and the SDGs. One of the questions being posed was, how can African universities be encouraged to address the SDGs? What should they do? And one of the most eminent professors present, Professor Olugumiro Jageda, a former Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, a Nigerian, gave a scary forecast. According to a 2016 UNESCO study that he quoted, Africa had zero chance of meeting the SDGs by 2030. Indeed, he thought it was unlikely they would even be achieved by the year 2080. Did you hear me? 2080. 50 years after the UN agreed date. Virtually everyone sitting in this hall will be dead by then. Think about it. In Cameroon, I proposed in the conference communique a number of concrete actions that African universities could take. They could conduct an internal consultation process to see how the university campus buildings could be retrofitted to energy and water needs, promote sustainable lifestyle styles. We could engage with academic staff to see how the silo mentality, so common in universities across the world, could be broken down, so that some of the barriers between sciences, humanities, and other subjects could be taught in a more integrated and holistic way. These and other resolutions were adopted, but frankly, I don't doubt that more than a small handful of African universities will take the concerted steps to make this happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I had said previously that the SDGs were generic, needed to be tailor-made to each and every country which signed up to them. Nigeria is no exception. In fact, it's produced its own document on the SDGs, and this is President Buhari signing up to them, and the Leave No One Behind slogan. Nigeria's voluntary review report sets out the structure of the view. You can't read it, but you can see more or less what it looks like, and links between this and the NERGP, the indicators, 2007 budget, and how Nigeria has implemented the SDGs. It's a very interesting document because for the first time it provides a coherent overview of how the Nigerian government is tackling the issue. I don't know if any of the honourable members here present have actually participated in this process. The document you see before you, again, I don't expect you to read it, was issued in June 2017 by Princess Adejoke Orelo Adefulire, the Senior Specialist Assistant to the President of Nigeria on SDGs. Nigeria was one of 41 countries that volunteered to present its report to the UN High-Level Political Forum in July 2017 in New York. So far, 111 such reports have been submitted since 2016, and a further 44 will be looked at in July 2019 next year, making a total of 155 out of the UN's 193 member states. The Nigerian consultations, the slides are moving a bit fast, I don't know why. The Nigerian consultations seem to be quite thorough and have taken place across the country at state and federal levels. Civil society groups have also been part of the process. A range of implementing structures have been put in place under the overall authority of the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President, USAP. Whilst the document is very professional, it recognises the immense challenges Nigeria is facing, and it identifies 3 critical challenges and concludes with this comment. And this is the previous slide. Maybe, no, back, back. There it is, it's the middle of that text. The government and the people of Nigeria collectively commit to strengthen the spirit of national ownership, to deepen the process of continuous sensitization on the awareness of the SDGs, and particularly through a robust and vigorous engagement with grassroots-based CSOs. For Nigeria to succeed in achieving the SDGs by 2030, it will require a supreme superhuman effort. A UN document was issued in July this year, a few months ago. Next slide. There we go. It's called the SDG Index and Dashboard Report 2000.